Good afternoon and welcome to the Martin Luther King Administrative Center here at the Collier County Public Schools in our board auditorium. I'm Kamala Patton, the superintendent for Collier County Public Schools, and this just is another day where we get the opportunity to work with partners around Collier County, and that's why we say Collier County is the best place to live in, because we partner together on many different fronts. So today we also want you to know we're actually filming this presentation, so although you may not see the audience jammed, do know that there will be a lot of folks that are watching this. And we want to also thank this distinguished panel, because tonight they're actually having an extra piece to this presentation, and that is that they're going to also link their presentation to children's identity issues. And they did that especially for our 45,000 kids, parents, and our employees. So I want to personally thank the panel for having another avenue that you'll speak to tonight for all of us here. So with that, it's my indeed pleasure to recognize your moderator for this evening, the one and only distinguished Jeff Lytle.
Thank you. Good evening. The superintendent is exactly right whenever she distinguished about me. I don't know, but when she says that the panel is distinguished, she is absolutely correct. Each speaker in his or her own right is an expert, and their individual presentations are strong, but taken as a whole, as a group, the net effect of their presentation is they pack a powerful punch for good and for public education. Let us make the most of this terrific opportunity to share information and to listen and learn and to ask questions. I want to introduce one more person working with us tonight, the person who perhaps holds the most power of anyone here tonight, and that would be our timekeeper. She runs a tight ship, and all the speakers can see that she has cards to let them know whenever they're coming up close to the time limit. And she's from the League of Women Voters. She does League of Women Voters. She does a terrific job. She is Sue Bookbinder. I'm going to invite you to do two things. Please, let's silence our cell phones, please. And also, remember that if you have a question for our panel, please use the little index cards that are available to you and fill out your question and hold it up for one of our helpers to pick up for when it comes time for questions and answers. So without further ado, our first presenter, helping present some of the data outlining the scope and the magnitude of this issue, is a multiple identity theft victim himself. He's a former city manager of Naples. He's also the former city fire chief and police chief, and now he is the Collier County Sheriff. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Kevin Rambosk.
Thank you, Jeff. And I just want to take a moment and thank Jeff for all the work he's done with us, because he has sat in on almost as many of these events as we've been doing. So thank you. Identity theft continues to be a growing problem throughout the nation. You know, a year ago we decided to focus on this because it was impacting many people, and one thing that we're going to touch on today is that it's not only affecting adults, but it is affecting our children. And we're going to talk about a variety of ways in which we can help with providing you awareness, information, prevention information, what we do with regard to investigations, and if necessary, how to rebuild one's identity. And that really leads to looking at the group that we have today. We have professionals from the private sector, we have law enforcement, state, local, and federal, and all together will help to bring some information to you with regard to what identity theft is all about, because it can be far-reaching and it can be very simple. It can go from an effect on your credit card to someone assuming your full identity and taking it all over, and that poses a significant problem. As Jeff mentioned, in my family, we tried to do everything correct. We got a shredder, we protected our passwords, we got a locking mailbox. My son went to school, he took care of his card, and all of a sudden we get a letter from Target that says your identity and information has been compromised. So after all of that, everything that we were doing, we had no control over it. And that's a little bit about what we're going to talk to you with regard to today. But there are 12.6 million victims of identity theft in this country. And the monetary impact is $21 to $50 billion per year. Every 3 seconds, there is an act of identity theft committed here. And that's why when we started the program less than a year ago, we were talking about how to prevent identity theft. Today, we're moving forward, and it's not only how to prevent, but how to rebuild and identify when you're becoming a victim of identity theft. We're going to talk a little bit about why 1 in 10 children in the state of Florida will be a victim of identity theft. That's a nuance that has been growing as well. Over 50,000 children in the state of Florida in the coming year will be a victim of identity theft. And, you know, today that may not seem a big issue, but later on down the road, when they apply for an internship, a job, financial assistance, want to go to school, a loan, or when they become an adult and their identity and their credit has been compromised, it's going to take a significant amount of time to correct all that. Data breaches is the #1 way in which we see this occurring. Just to give you some insight, in 2005, there were 157 reported data breaches. As far as 2013, it increased to 619. And then so far this year, in 2014, it is up to 638, with 78 million pieces of data that have been brought into existence for somebody to utilize. So with that, we'll just tell you that we have a lot of great information here, a lot of good people. If you think you've been a victim and you don't know for sure, you can contact our agency and or the Naples Police Department, and we'll be around right after this, and we can hook you up with the right people to investigate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is from the Naples Police Department. As the sheriff mentioned, he had 30 years with the Miami Beach Police Force, came to the Naples Police Force in 2007, and now he is the chief of the Naples Police Force. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Weschler.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have not been the victim yet, and I say yet because it's just a matter of time. It's one of those things that I think it'll eventually, you'll hear from the experts, that it affects us all down the road. I'd like to thank Michael Regan, Lydia Galton, and Murray Hendel. When we first started talking about this, we got together for a meeting, and it was standing room only, and former Sheriff Hunter was there as well. And it was amazing, the outpour from the community with the financial institutions, different businesses, the government entities, everybody that got there and realized this is a problem, we need to address it, and we need to address it now. So thank you all. One of the challenges we have to deal with this, I think, is the globalization of the world. We don't have any jurisdictional boundaries anymore, and it makes it difficult. So I think one of our main things that we have to do is the prevention and what we can do for the education, which is why we're here today with the experts. The matter that I'd like to bring up is you'll hear the sheriff, you'll hear me, the governor, the president talk about crime is down, crime is down, crime is down. When we talk about that, we're not talking about identity theft. We're talking about the Part 1 crimes, the Uniform Crime Report statistics of the 8 top crimes, and identity theft is not one of those. So if I get up and say crime is down 13%, we don't want people to get their guard down and think, well, that includes identity theft, and that's down as well. It's not considered as one of those UCR statistics, and it's something that everybody needs to take into consideration. With that, I guess we'll hear from the experts now, and for everybody, just be proactive, be suspicious of everything that's out there, and like I have one of my detectives here as well, if anybody has any questions with the City of Naples. Detective Carol Melito's here if anybody has any concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, for some of the details we came here to learn about this evening. Our first expert, and these next speakers get extended time to go into some of that detail. She is a Victim Services Program Specialist with the Florida Attorney General's Office, and she specializes in identity theft. Let's welcome Teresa Ronnebaum.
Thank you. It is a a pleasure to be back in Naples. I have been on a panel, I think about 3 times now, and to specialize and have some good news for you all tonight is that we have a new law established specifically for children and their credit. It's called the KIDS Act, and it was implemented in September. So I will tell you, since 2002, I was the first advocate of its kind, specific to Florida and fraud. And that was one of the main obstacles we had, was what do we do with children's identities that are compromised when you typically say you have a minor child, they shouldn't have credit, and they may be going to college, trying for their first student loan, buying their first car, and they find out 17 years ago someone had compromised their identity. So with the KIDS Act law that was implemented in Florida this year, we can now say, I can safeguard a child's identity before it's compromised. The child freeze is through the KIDS Act that the main obstacle we had was that a child never had a credit report. So when you would say, let's freeze something, they'd say, what are we freezing? We can't lock anything. Well, what this freeze law will do for a child is you will implement a freeze or a credit report, and then you will immediately freeze it. For $10, through the main 3 credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, we can actually lock our child's identity, creditworthiness down before it's compromised. Sadly, in 2013, Florida is ranked #1 in the nation for identity theft. We are also ranked #1 in the nation for fraud cases. When you put that into perspective, think of children. Many of those go undiscovered because they don't know about it for years. So a lot of times, people are more apt to using a child's identity. Unfortunately, sometimes it's parents. Sometimes it's foster children that we're seeing it. Data breaches, as the sheriff spoke about. Internal rings where they're specific to only taking child identity. Those social security numbers established with the child even filing taxes. They do this because there's no check and balance and those children don't have a voice. So with that statistic of #1 in the nation, think about how many children are actually undiscovered and underreported. So what we ask is the information that we've provided today, I have it out in the front. So we ask that parents and guardians look at the information the Federal Trade Commission now has available, as well as our Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services website, freshfromflorida.com. They have actual templates that provide you with the written documentation a parent or guardian needs to show proof of a child and to lock down a credit. And when I say lock down a credit, that means that a child's social security number would then be locked and frozen until they're of age to lift that freeze and establish their own credit, or a parent or guardian at some point in time, say they're going to open up a checking account and a credit report needs to be run, then that parent could actually go in and lift that freeze temporarily. So the KIDS Act has been a wonderful thing to the state of Florida for the fact that, unfortunately, we are #1 in the nation as the reports to the Federal Trade Commission. With the KIDS Act law goes along with the fact that some of our next speakers will be talking about the prevention side of it. This is our education side of it, but we really have to go out, do outreach, and do the prevention side. If you have any questions, I'll stay afterwards as well. Along with the Federal Trade Commission, Safeguarding Your Child's Future, this publication is in the back. We also have the Attorney General's Office brochure. This is our identity theft brochure. It provides resources to the 3 credit bureaus, which is who you would contact in writing to place a child freeze. You also, as an adult, under the Florida statute freeze law, if you're over the age of 65 or a victim with a police report, the initial $10 fee is waived. So any of us here in the room can take advantage of the freeze. We've just implemented in the last 2 months that a child now can have the freeze in place. With that said, the Florida Attorney General's Office has a no-scam hotline. Feel free to call our staff in Tallahassee at 1-866-9-NO-SCAM. The number is also included on the brochure. We have advocates such as myself, regional advocates, and then our staff up in Tallahassee that take phone calls where any of this information can be reported to, notify us, and then we will help you get assistance by your local law enforcement or federal governments. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa, for our viewers who may be looking in on video later, the website for this information for them is what?
We have websites posted. I believe we have a slide available on the screen, and that would be freshfromflorida.com as well as ftc.gov And I believe the other one that we included for the viewing is the Uniform Minors Status Declaration PDF. That would be, the Uniform Minor Status Declaration would be for victims of identity theft that are minor children. Often that's a huge obstacle for parents to try and justify the fact that their child cannot go into a contract for a credit because they're a minor. So a lot of times, if they cannot get a police report, the Federal Trade Commission would refer them to the Uniform Minor Status Declaration PDF. And they should be available on the freshfromflorida.com website.
Fresh from Florida.
That's the Department of
.com.
Agriculture and Consumer Services website.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is the leader of the fight against identity theft day in and day out for the Collier County Sheriff's Office. He supervises the Financial Crimes Bureau, and he also is an instructor for the Florida Attorney General's Office, and he has a master's degree in management from Hodges University. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Lieutenant Chad Parker.
Thank you. We talked about the credit freeze that you can do for yourself as an adult as well as for your children, and those are the two best things that you can do on your own as self-initiative to protect yourself from identity theft. I've been working these crimes since 1999, and I've been a victim of identity theft myself 3 times. So for all my efforts, I've been compromised. And it's not that I did anything wrong, and it's not that you will do anything wrong. As Carrie's going to touch on, your information is out there, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I'm going to go into some tips to keep your child's information safe, but it's also going to apply to adults as well. The first one is keeping birth certificates, Social Security cards, and other sensitive documents in a secure place, such as a safety deposit box or a home safe, and avoid carrying these documents on you. I will say that last year in Palm Beach County, they had a rash of home burglaries. And then about 4 months later, they realized that all their victims of the home burglaries had their identities stolen, because criminals are now going into your house and not just going after the jewelry, the high-end electronics, and cash. If they can grab one of your 1040s on their way out, that has all of your names, socials, and dates of birth on there, as well as those of your dependents. And they will turn around and sell that information on the street, because that information has value. All right, so try to secure that information. Second, be careful when disposing of documents containing personal information. Shred them before you throw them out. Get a good cross-cut shredder. Earlier this year, the sheriff's office here was called in Collier County because somebody walked by someone's trash and saw a box. And the box contained a whole bunch of documents of children who had registered to play competitive sports. And their names, socials, and dates of birth were on all these documents. We were able to find out that the person who threw it away used to be a coach. And he said, "This is 3 years old. I don't even coach anymore." Well, is that information 3 years old? Your name, social, and date of birth are with you for your entire life. So had that ended up in the wrong hands, that was a wealth of information for the criminal to steal identities. We took the information, shredded it, and we gave that person a little education on, you know, if you're coaching or you have somebody else's information, you have responsibility to make sure you dispose of it properly. Avoid giving out your child's Social Security number unless it's absolutely necessary. That goes for adults as well. Ask why it is needed, how it will be protected, how will it be used, and if another form of ID would be acceptable. Use strong computer passwords. Never write them down or share them. A strong computer password includes letters, numbers, and symbols. All right, try to get in that habit. Get away from common names, your mother's maiden name, your date of birth, or any of that. There's programs out there that can crack those types of passwords. Limit your information you share about yourself and your child on social networking sites. You should be watching what your children are doing on the computers anyway, but information can easily be shared out there when they think they're talking to their friends, but they're not. There's ways that criminals can just be watching on the computer and stealing information, okay? So be very aware of what your children are accessing on the internet. And only use secure websites when sharing financial information online. A lock icon on the status bar of your browser means your information will be safe when it is transmitted. Whenever you go to a website, whether you're going to make a purchase online or provide some personal information, say you're registering your child for some event and you have to provide their personal information on that site. When you get to that site, at the very top, it should be HTTPS. The S indicates the site is secure, and there will be a padlock at the top. make sure that padlock is in the locked position. Those two symbols, the S at the end and the locked padlock, will let you know that this website is secure and you can feel comfortable entering any personal information on that site. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe there'll be time later you can tell us about the credit card versus the debit card and the gas pumps, I hope. Okay. Our next speaker joins the Identity Theft Task Force panel for the first time. Is a prominent local attorney. He has been an outspoken advocate for criminal prosecutions of financial and white-collar crime. He goes after big bad guys for big bucks. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Christopher Vernon.
I'll tell you, I learn a lot every time I sit in or see these guys speak. And every time, about halfway through the program, my burning desire is to take my family, move to Montana, go completely off the grid. And then I have the person who's going to speak next, Ms. Carrie Kursky, tell me if you do that, it's going to be worse because you're going to be like the kids. No, you're not going to know they've stolen your identity for years and years and years. So this is a tough, tough problem, and I think it's great you guys are coming out here because I think I think, and what I want to talk about is sort of a different type of prevention. And what I really want to talk about is sort of a mindset. And it's, you know, they asked me to focus on kids, but I think this goes for everybody. But if we can give our kids a mindset that their information has value and is a tradable commodity. Does anybody, and men my age, if you don't admit that you've seen this, you're not telling the truth. Did anybody see those movies that made Mel Gibson famous, the Mad Max movies, Road Warrior? Anybody? Anybody? I know you've seen those. Does anybody remember the town that they went to for the semi-civilized place to go? It was called Barter Town. So think about that, Barter Town. When your kids and you are getting an app, you're getting a debit or you're getting a discount card, you're bartering. And so think about that. You are paying for that free app. You are paying for that discount card. You're just not paying with cash. You're paying with information. And if you can get that mindset, and your kids can get that mindset, again, you can't go off the grid. You can't go to Montana. But you can say, I want to get good value. And this probably isn't a good example, but I think it brings home the point. Let's just say that you go to Starbucks once a year and grab a cup of coffee, and you get a Starbucks card. Then you are trading your private information for a free cup of coffee. That is not a good trade. Now, if you go to Starbucks every day and you're getting a cup of coffee and a sandwich and spending $10, you probably shouldn't be doing that for a cup of coffee. But if you do, you might be getting good value for what you're getting. I mean, you're giving a fair value for what you're getting. So if everybody can just get that mindset, what I think it might do, it may deter you from getting quite so many apps, quite so many credit cards, et cetera, et cetera. I've got 2 credit cards in my pocket, 1 professional, 1 personal. I don't have an ATM card. I don't have a debit card. I'm going to exaggerate a little bit to give this example, but let's say I have 8 apps on my phone. So I basically have 10 places where my identity can be stolen through, say, a data breach the sheriff was talking about. Now, if you have 4 credit cards, an ATM card, a debit card, a Macy's card, a Target card, a Home Depot card, Walgreens card, and 90 apps on your phone, then you've got 100 places that your identity can be stolen. Let's put it in this context. Let's say you've got storage units. I've got 10 storage units, and you, if you're in that, fit within that example, or your kid has 1 debit card and 99 apps, they've got 100 storage units. And all the police on this panel can tell you, all the law enforcement, if you've got 100 units as opposed to 10 units, you've got 10 times as many chances of being robbed. So if you get that mindset, I think it might cause your kids and cause you to say, you know, I don't need this app to play a game for one day or once a year. I mean, look at your apps on your phone. I use Pandora every day, listen to music. So I get that app, and I'm exposing myself. But if you've got an app on there that you've used one time and you'll never use again, you probably shouldn't have downloaded that app in the first place. Do you really need it? And then I think Carrie's going to talk about terms of service and privacy policy. I don't want to steal your thunder, but I was going to go over, you suggested. Okay. She said, you're the lawyer. You talk about terms of service, even though she knows more about it than I do. I'm going to give you 2 examples, and this relates to apps on your phone. Does anybody here doesn't have apps on their phone? Okay, so about 25% of the population. I would guarantee you just about, bet you a steak dinner, that all the kids, if there's any kids watching, they all have apps on their phones. So I'll give you 2 examples. So first you've got the mindset, you know, what am I trading? What am I bartering? Or what am I getting for my bartering away my private information? And once you get to that point, you still have some additional choices that might protect you. And one is the flashlight app. A lot of people have flashlight apps. I've got 2 different printouts for 2 different terms of service for 2 different flashlight apps. One of the flashlight apps, in order to get that free app, I have to barter or trade away access to my camera and microphone. Now, another free app that actually has many more users, they're both free, they're both a flashlight. You have to give this flashlight app or this service provider your location, your photos, your media, your files, your camera, your microphone, your Wi-Fi connection information, your device ID, and call information to use a flashlight. So, and these are easy to find. If you've got an Android phone, you just pop them up and it'll show you what you're giving up. So I would suggest if you get the flashlight app that just takes minimal information away from you, you're making a good trade, a good barter. And the last one, kid specific, 2 games. One's called Jump Jump Ninja. You play it all the time? I do. Okay, good choice. Jump Jump Ninja. In order to play their free game, it says Jump Jump Ninja does not require any special permissions. That's great. But if you want to play Legion of Heroes, you have to give them your device and app history, your identity, your photo media files, your Wi-Fi connection information, your device ID, and call information. Your kids are giving all this away to play that. I would say that's not a good trade. Thank you.
Thank you. This would be a good time to remind the audience that if we have any questions, we should use the index cards that are available, write the question out, and then hold it up, and one of the helpers will pick them up, and we'll have a question and answer session after all the panelists have spoken. And our next panelist is a private investigator who has come to focus exclusively on identity theft, and she's even become an author. And the title of her latest book is very telling. It says, Your Public Identity, Because Nothing is Private Anymore. Let's welcome Carrie Kursky.
Well, thank you all for having us here and for coming out. To follow up on what Chris was saying, yes, the terms of service. Majority of people, they download these apps, and when you go to download it, it pops up a screen and says, you know, would you like to read the terms of service or the privacy policies? Majority of the times, people just dismiss them. But when you read them, you're going to find the shocking details, just like the apps that Chris had talked about. I see it all the time with people, and when they've had a data breach or when their computer gets compromised, because they then will sync their smartphone with their desktop or laptop, and then they wonder why their devices become infected. And a lot of time it's through these apps. So make sure you read the terms of service and privacy policies. Funny story, I did a presentation for a room full of lawyers. Sorry, Chris. And I brought up about them having to read the terms of service and privacy policies. And one of them said, well, we don't want to take the time. They're too difficult. I said, well, then stop writing them that way. But another thing to talk about with children and social media. The latest trend has been when a young adult gets their first job, they post a selfie with their paycheck. And they tag it, #first paycheck my first paycheck or hashtag, first job, something like that. So the criminals know this. They're surfing the internet for that specific hashtag phrase, and then they're just saving off of Instagram. They're downloading all these pictures. The criminals now have the routing number and bank account number for all of these businesses, and they're forging checks. They can also use them to apply for unemployment benefits using the child's name through that employer, because when they contact the state's Department of Revenue, it's going to show valid that, yes, that's who the person is working for. So then your child's going to come home and say, Mom, Dad, I was just told by my employer somebody filed for unemployment in my name. It's very difficult to get that problem corrected. Speaking of child having their first job, now they're going to start their track qualifying for Social Security benefits. There is a program out there that I guarantee hardly anyone in this room has heard of. It's called the MySSA program. Anyone familiar with this? Well, you people on the panel know it because you hear me talk, but for the rest of the room, not a single hand went up. And that's the problem. The MySSA program stands for My Social Security Account. Remember the years ago you used to be able to get the statement of benefits in the mail and it would tell you if you retire at such and such age, this is how much you're going to get in Social Security benefits, or if you're currently receiving benefits, it'll give you like a year-end summary. Well, they no longer want to mail those statements out. For our convenience, I love how they always throw that term around, but for our convenience, they're now going to give us online access to our accounts, so we can check it at any time. Well, people don't know that they can set up for this online account. So the criminals, because of all the data security breaches and having all the names, address, date of birth, and Social Security numbers on the black market for sale, they're buying this information and they're setting up your MySSA account on your behalf. I've had 5 cases in the past 2 months of victims of Social Security fraud. One where someone applied for benefits before the victim intended to, and the other one, their deposits were being rerouted to a different account. And every single one I traced back to the MySSA program. They go online, they fill in your name, address, date of birth, your social. Then they also, through a partnership with Experian, created an identity verification program. Sounds wonderful. Well, the questions that they ask are based off of the Experian credit report. Questions such as, what address do you currently have your mortgage? What's the name of your mortgage company? Is there somewhere on the internet where you could possibly find that information? Yeah, public record, usually through property appraisers or clerk of court's office in every single county. So they can use this information by searching the internet to come up with the rest of the qualifying questions. That's how they're able to do it. Another way they're able to do it is just like Chris was talking about, where people give up too much information through these apps. They can use the apps to fill in the missing blanks. So once they set up your account, they can now file for benefits, or they can change which account the benefits are going to be deposited into. So there are 2 things you can do to prevent this from happening to you. First one is set up your MySSA account. You go to the Social Security Administration's website, which is ssa.gov, and on the left side, it used to be on the bottom, but they've moved it up a little bit, you'll see a box that says My Social Security. You're going to click on that box, and it's going to give you the instructions of how you set up your account. When you click on the next screen, it's going to give you 2 options. The first one is to create the account. The second option is to opt out or to block online access. So if you choose to not have any access online, you can do that. Just let the Social Security Administration know. Now, that means you won't be able to check your benefits online, but it also prevents a criminal from being able to do it. When you set up your account, they're going to ask you your name, address, date of birth, and Social Security number, plus the qualifying questions. Then you'll get a username and password. Just like the panelists have said, Lieutenant Parker said, you need to secure your passwords and make a strong password. Once you have the account set up, you prevent somebody else from doing it on your behalf. Now, if you go to do this, when you get home tonight or tomorrow, because I know everybody's going to rush out and do it, when you go to the Social Security Administration's website, if you enter your information and it says you already have an account, that means somebody beat you to it. So you're going to have to contact the Social Security Administration office, probably go visit them in person, pack a lunch and a dinner. You'll be there all day. But to go down and explain to them, that someone has hijacked your identity and they have set up an account on your behalf. Before you visit the local office, though, I suggest you call them on their 800 number and ask them what information or documentation do you have to bring with you so you don't have to make a second trip. If you have any questions, I'll remain here as well. And I have a few business cards, so please give any one of us a call for any questions. Even if you receive a phone call and you're not sure if it's a scam or not, please reach out to any one of us so we can help you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next panelist brings a special perspective on all of this as an investigator for the Internal Revenue Service. He's come here this evening from Tampa, where he's a special agent in charge of the Tampa field office that comprises 7 investigative groups that cover Central and Southern Florida. Let's welcome James Robnett.
Thank you very much. 2 pieces to this, and I'll tell you that my responsibility and the responsibility of the agents that work for me and work for you is to investigate, police, and prosecute these crimes. And 3 years ago, we actually set up what we call the Tampa Bay ID Theft Alliance to tackle this exact problem. And since that time, we've had a lot of success with our partner agencies, more than 15 law enforcement agencies bound together in that Tampa region. And we have had and continue to have a lot of success working together, like we are here on this panel, to identify and build cases, bring in evidence, and prosecute those cases federally, where the perpetrators have gotten anywhere from 3 to 5 to 10 to 12 to 15 to 20 to 21 and up to 26 years in federal prison. So these are the prosecution success stories, the actual investigative piece that is really my primary role, one, to protect you and to protect your treasury, and we take that very seriously. But we're here for the outreach part to talk to you about how, to avoid being a victim, and so that's what I like to focus on. And one thing I like to mention is, the first crime is the theft of the IDs. After the theft of the IDs, all kinds of crimes can happen. Mortgage fraud, credit card fraud, VA fraud, tax fraud, Social Security fraud. You name it, it can happen. So there's the theft of the ID, which is what we're trying to sort of contain here and make sure that you don't fall victim of. But just plan that one day you probably will be a victim, as you may have your name in 100 storage locations or maybe even 10. Because it can and will happen. We also partner with Crime Stoppers, State Attorney General's Office, and folks on the room. In terms of what we found in our investigations, just so you know, the breaches, the data breaches, while there are the sophisticated breaches that you hear about, Home Depot, Target, et cetera, recently, Postal Service, right? They're the local breaches that we find that bring us investigations where healthcare facilities, all this have been there, right? Things that you should ask, and we've mentioned, how is that data stored? Well, probably not real good. Right? Because nearly everyone in the state has been there. You need to maybe ask your physician, how do you lock it up? Who has access to it? Who cleans your office at night? I mean, these are all valid questions because your information is commodity. Criminals will pay from $0 to $100 for one individual's bundle of personal information. It's a commodity. It is cash. Okay? So just want to bring that out to you. That's the criminal investigative piece that I spend most of my time on. But I want to mention to you that if you were a victim of stolen identity refund fraud, again, a lot of agencies who deal out benefits, VA, Social Security, IRS, we are service-based. So it's our obligation to provide you a service as easily and as quickly as possible, i.e. my Social Security account online. IRS has electronic filing. VA also has some online services. So the compliance piece of this often comes after the fact of service. So if you were a victim of stolen identity refund fraud, if you go to irs.gov, there are a number of steps there you can take, including filling out an IRS affidavit, providing copies of your identifying information to IRS, and it gives all the instructions online. Basically, what you would need to do is authenticate your identity to IRS, and then they'll work their best and as timely as possible to correct your tax account to get you the refund you're due, if that's the case, and to correct your account. One tip, file early. just like in Social Security, beat the bad guys to perhaps filing a false return in your name. If you don't have a filing requirement or haven't had a filing requirement, you could still be a victim. So if you've gotten a letter from IRS that says you may have been a victim of ID theft, please don't discard it just because you're on the filing requirement. Follow up on that, because these are things that you don't want to trip up on later when you do need that identity to file for a mortgage or a loan or some other service. There are a number of scams out there that target trusting citizens. And that's what we do. You know, we're built in, especially in the room here, generations that trust people. There's a scam that's been ongoing for 8 to 9 months. And I want to mention this to you because it is pervasive in Florida and around the country, but in particular in Florida. It's a simple title. It's called the IRS impersonation scam. And I think if you could move that slide one more slide forward, just leave that there for me. So you may be getting a call, and some of you may have already gotten this call from someone who says they're an IRS agent. Got one in back room. I'm an IRS agent. You owe money. You've ignored tax notices, and they tell you enough about yourself through knowing about social media that you begin to believe who they are. And then they say, well, we've got a warrant for your arrest, and this is all false. And we contacted the Collier County Sheriff's Office or wherever county you live in, because again, public records tell them where you live. But you can settle this by paying us a certain amount of money on a prepaid debit card, and we'll make it go away. And first of all, IRS does not make phone calls like this. If you owe taxes, you know, and IRS still uses what we commonly call a snail mail, paper mail, right? So that's good. So just so you know, that's a scam. It's out there. It's very aggressive. I know some folks that are in this task force, their clients have gotten up to 15, 20 calls about it. This is aggressive. They get angry with you. They get very aggressive with you, and many people have fallen victim. So please, move that. Can you move that slide one more? This may actually show you one more. Let's see. Okay, so if you were to go online and Google IRS impersonation scam and select the first link, it'll take you to our Inspector General's office website. And this is a picture of it, just so you know what it looks like. And this will let you know it's authentic. And on that, if you've gotten a call, whether you've paid money or just gotten a call, our Inspector General would like to know who called you, when they called you, what do they know about you. But my advice to you is when you get this call and you get indications you just don't feel right about it, hang up the phone. They will call back again. Hang it up a second time. They will say, you see my phone number from 202. 202 number, they spoof that. They make you think they're from Washington, D.C. We don't work that way. IRS does not make phone calls like that. If you owe taxes, we all know. You know that, and you've already communicated with us. So please be aware of that. If you're community leaders, please pass that on to your associations, because it is something that we're really trying to get a handle on. So I'm around till we're done. So I invite any questions during the session and afterward. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to questions now. And again, if you filled out your index card, great. If you have not, there's still a chance to fill out your card, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. The cards are back there if you didn't already get them. And if our folks are watching this on TV and video later, we're looking at and wondering, where's the school board? Who are these people sitting in front of the school board dais? And this is a special forum of the Identity Theft Task Force on identity theft, including adults and for children. The first question from today's audience is, how do I get a credit report, and why should I?
I can answer that. How do you get a credit report? Under federal law, we should all be pulling our credit report once a year. And I will say that lightly because it can be an obstacle to some. Specific, I tease my father, who knows nothing about our finances, or my mom, because you have to answer 3 security questions per credit bureau in order to pull that credit report free every year online. If you are not savvy, or you don't ever want to touch a computer again because of a victimization, there are other options. Federal Trade Commission's publication has an actual flyer inside of it where you can fill it out and send it in to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. You can go to annualcreditreport.com. That is where you will be required to answer 3 security questions per credit bureau. If you don't know your finances, you will not be able to do it through the internet. They also have a 1-800 number. So my suggestion is all of us in this room should be pulling our credit report for free It's our right as a consumer every year. And again, that's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Feel free to take the identity theft brochure out at the front. It has the 3 credit bureaus. It also has the Florida identity theft statute, among some other things, for resources and information referral. Thank you.
Anybody else on the panel?
I was actually going to ask her a question to follow up, because
Please.
to me, it's not that easy. Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Which, is there one that's easier to use? Are they all the same? Is there a difference?
They're all very different. Even in my role with the Attorney General's office, sometimes it's as simple as being an advocate, helping seniors understand a credit report. Because sometimes I tell them their thieves could possibly be hidden within the inquiry, name, and address section on that credit report. So if you do have questions about pulling your credit report online, it can be very difficult. The freeze laws, every state has a different freeze law. So when you go to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion's credit bureau websites, they have a long list where you have to find your state, scroll over, and see what your requirements are. When I say requirements, either money, as well as documentation showing proof of who you are. Along with children, again, you have to mail in everything from a certified birth certificate of that child, a copy of their social security card. So all of that information is required by the 3 main credit reporting agencies. Now, we have over 250 credit reporting agencies. Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion are the main 3 that you would communicate with regarding a freeze, as well as pulling your credit report. Also, lastly, keep in mind, if you want to pull your free credit report under the federal law, the credit bureaus will ask you if you would like your credit score. I would suggest declining that unless you really want to know, because they will charge you. So your report is free, but your credit score will be a fee.
Chad or Carrie? That's it?
Well, and yeah, I'll say one thing. In addition, we recommend that, you know, not pulling all 3 of your major credit reports at the same time, but spread them out quarterly throughout the year, so you can keep track of that. But even one step beyond that is that we need to be monitoring our purchases and our accounts, our credit cards, our, well, debit cards, we're going to tell you that you shouldn't even be using them. But your personal accounts, we need to be doing that on a daily basis, because the sooner you recognize someone is using your account information, the better it's going to be for correcting it.
Okay. Next question. I have several questions from the audience about Lockline. Is it worth the money? And I can see Carrie was the first one to push her button.
Okay, LifeLock, that's the one people are most familiar with because of their advertising everywhere and anywhere. I personally am not a fan. The Federal Trade Commission has fined them $12 million for deceptive advertising because they make you think that if you pay for their service, you will never become a victim. That's impossible. I'm an identity theft expert. I've been working at this for years. I've trained law enforcement, attorneys, accountants, nationally, internationally. I've had my identity stolen 3 times. My information has been on the personal identifying information black market since 2008. So right now someone can be using my social and there's nothing I can do to stop it from happening. The only thing that the LifeLock type of services do, if it's just the credit monitoring, it tells you you're now a victim. That's it. You're paying for them to tell you you're a victim. Like we talked about earlier, you can do a security freeze. If you lock down your credit, then there's nothing to monitor because you're locking it down so no one can get access to it. When you do go to buy one of these services, now I'm not saying they're bad. If you know you're not going to lock down your credit, you know you're not going to check your credit reports, fine, go ahead and pay for a service. But the #1 question you need to ask any of these companies is, what will you do for me when I become a victim? You will get very different answers. I've had a lot of clients so far this year that when they come to me after they're a victim, I ask them if they have a service, and they've all said, well, yeah, I have LifeLock. I said, well, why are you calling me? Call them. They call me back, and they say, well, I was told that was not in my plan. So you need to find out if they're going to do all the work on your behalf. If they do, you're going to have to sign a limited power of attorney. That's because of all the federal privacy laws. My clients have to do the same thing. If they don't ask you to sign one, you're going to be doing all the work yourself. So you need to look at the contract. Don't go for the bells and whistles of the $1 million insurance policies. They all have that. And you probably already have an identity theft insurance policy on your homeowner's insurance right now. So just ask, what will you do for me when I become a victim? You want specifics, and you need to verify it in the contract.
Anybody else? Okay. We'll follow up there. Is karma.com still being utilized as a free credit report?
That one. Karma, Credit Karma, or any of those types of services, just as Chris was speaking of earlier, when you sign up for those, they're selling your information to the mortgage companies. It's not free. None of these companies are going to do this out of the goodness of their hearts. They're all making money. You have to read through the agreements, read the terms of service and privacy policies, and you'll be surprised at what you find out. If it's too good to be true, don't fall for it.
Anybody else? Next question. What was the hashtag for the paddle lock sign? The paddle lock sign.
I think you're talking about the site you go to on the internet when you're going to enter your personal information. At the very top, it'll have HTTPS. The S means this is a secure site. And then on that same toolbar at the top, there should be a padlock in the locked position. That S and the padlock in the locked position give you the assurance that the page you're on is secure and it's encrypted. So if you're going to enter any personal information, including your credit card number, etc., that it is secure and you should feel comfortable in doing so. If you don't see the S, or the lock is unlocked, or there is no lock, then don't enter any of your personal information on that site because it's not safe.
Thank you. Next question. If I go to an app on my phone for a sports team and it's free with no information needed to be given, is that safe?
Nothing in digital format is 100% secure. Everything you do has risks. If you're paying your bills and you're putting it in the mailbox, there's a risk of somebody stealing it out of your mailbox. So, you have to weigh the risk and rewards. If you've read through the terms of service and you read through the privacy policy and you're fine with what information they are or are not going to be obtaining by downloading the app, then fine, go ahead. Make sure when you do download apps, they are from legitimate app stores. For example, like the Apple or the iTunes. Don't download any apps from any third-party or generic type of app stores, because those are loaded with malware, and malware is software with malicious intent. Those are like your viruses, your Trojans and such. So if you stick to the legitimate sites and you read the terms of service and privacy policies, then go ahead.
Anybody else?
I just keep in mind that you don't have to, with these apps, you don't have to give any personal information. What Carrie's saying is you're opening a door to your storage unit. They're going to go in and rummage around. It's just a matter of how many rooms they can go into. So you don't want to give out personal information. That's one point. But separate from that, when you're dealing with the apps, it's what Carrie's saying. What are you saying? You can look at this. You can look at this. You can look at this on my phone, because they'll get in there whether they got your personal information or not.
Anybody else? Okay, next question. What's being done with the scams and identity theft with companies and businesses like Target and now Home Depot? How will it affect their customers who have credit cards with them?
Let me start with talking a little bit about Target, because that's where we had our identity compromised. They actually had a very proactive approach. They worked in conjunction with their bank. They had new cards that were automatically sent to customers. Any of you that were involved in that saw that they had a pretty proactive approach to trying to correct. But I will tell you that they are one of the few. On our most recent one with Home Depot, I'm not sure, but I believe they're following the same Target trend.
Just to add to that, what a lot of people don't realize is that most of these large data breaches were not because of any fault of the company itself. For example, the Target data breach came from the HVAC, the heating and cooling company that Target hired to manage the temperature controls of their stores nationwide. One of their employees clicked on a link in a phishing email, which allowed malware to get onto the network, and it sat there dormant until the employee logged into the Target network, and it followed through the tunnel. Same thing for JP Morgan. They had all the security that was needed to be in place. One of their employees was working from home, and he didn't realize it, but he had malware on his personal computer. And when he logged in through the VPN, which is a secured portal to get into the JP Morgan network, it followed him through and bypassed all of the security. These hackers are going for the weakest link. They're going for the small business owners who have connections with these larger companies. And just as, what the sheriff was saying, these companies have a responsibility, because even though the breach didn't happen because of them, it's still your information and you are their client, so they have to mitigate it. In Florida, just this year, they initiated the Information Protection Act of 2014, which requires businesses to protect your information, and in the event of a breach, it states specifically what the business has to do. It doesn't matter the size of the business, it doesn't matter the location. If more than 500 Floridians are affected, they must send written notification to every single person who's been a victim. There are a lot of other qualifications as well, and it also changes the definition of what is sensitive information. So that's something that business owners need to take note of. But these data breaches, it's just going to continue to happen, and we can't depend on the corporations to protect it, because nothing in digital format can be protected 100%. We as consumers are going to have to limit who we give our information to.
Anybody? Jed.
And to add on that, with the Target breach, we run into jurisdictional issues. It was identified that a 19-year-old Ukrainian man was the one behind the Target breach of 110 million card numbers. And it is well known that the Russians are doing a lot of these hackings and these data breaches in the United States. So we don't have any jurisdiction over in Russia and these other countries. So the government's aware of it, and I guess it falls on to our Homeland Security folks to be looking at that aspect.
That is a terrific point, because a lot of our residents who have become victims of this, they come and ask us to investigate their case and or to take a report. We will take a report from anybody who has a problem, but not all organizations throughout the United States will take that report. But you need to be reporting. The city will, we will. More importantly, the other evening I was watching an interview with a hacker on TV, and basically he said, if you're connected to the internet, he can get your information, period. It's that simple.
Lastly, take advantage of the monitoring if it's offered to you. I know Target was one of the companies that offered it. They are not obligated under federal or state law to provide any type of monitoring service, so when it's there, take it. Make sure you're enrolling properly. I know with Target, I had a few calls from consumers saying, well, I got a phone call. It was a phishing scam. The thieves will take advantage of you when you're at your lowest. So sometimes, unfortunately, we're getting phishing scams through spoofing calls, as well as mail outs that say it's from Target. Click on the link, or please call this 1-800 number. So when there is a monitoring service available to you during a breach, please make sure and call that company from your home phone or log into their website. Don't take the information that comes to you, but please take advantage of it.
And to follow up on that, when you do take advantage of it, it's very limited in monitoring. 9 times out of 10, they're only monitoring one credit bureau. So don't think, well, I have this free service because I was a victim of a breach, I don't have to worry about anything. You still need to be diligent, because somebody could be using your identity on the other 2 credit bureaus, the one that's not being monitored by the free service. Also, no monitoring service that is available. There's nothing out there that can tell you if somebody's filing a fraudulent tax return in your name. There's nothing that can tell you if somebody's using your identity to get medical service. There's nothing that can tell you if somebody's filing for unemployment benefits in your name. It's still on all of us to monitor our information and to take action when we see red flags.
And finally on that, when you talk about the breach itself and what efforts are being made to contain the damage, when we're involved in investigations and we learn where the breach occurred, and it happens at various stages, we go to that institution, we go to that entity, and we identify the personal information that was breached, and within IRS we actually submit that to our civil component, large IRS, and they'll actually put controls on some tax accounts to preempt a false filing, and so that if that information if you haven't been victimized yet, we hope to get in front of that. And I can't speak for other federal agencies, but I do know we communicate with regard to how we handle breaches with other federal agencies. But this is an emerging issue, and to gather all that data in from large breaches like Home Depot and Target and somehow put protections in all these systems is something that's evolving. But we're doing our best to protect those before the damage occurs.
Thank you. Anybody else? Next question. I will tell you that I have a handful of really great questions here that are going to elicit great answers, so stay tuned. They're really good. Here's one that's always good. Is it safer to pay bills automatically, or should I pay the bills by check each month? And Carrie just reached for her book.
Yes, I love this question. Like I'd mentioned earlier, if you pay by check or pay online, you have risks either way. If you pay by check, someone can steal it out of your mailbox, or it can be stolen anywhere from when it leaves your mailbox to when it goes to the company to whom you're paying the bill. When you do it online, you can have risks there as well. I personally like the online access. Now, when I say online access as opposed to online bill pay, they're two different things. I like the online access so I can log into my bank accounts and my credit card accounts, and I can monitor them on a daily basis. That way, if there's any fraudulent transactions, I can take immediate action. If I wait to receive my paper statement in the mail 30 days, my account could be wiped out by the time I get my statement. So I like to have that online access. Also, the financial institutions have created alerts, which will send you either a text message or an email, and you can create them so if your account drops below a certain balance, or if there's a transaction larger than X, or American Express, they have one, it's a card not present. So if somebody's trying to use your information online or ordering by phone, you're going to get a message saying, hey, did you do this? So those are great tools to help you monitoring. As far as online bill pay, that's where you log into your bank account and you tell your bank on this date pay this bill and on this date pay that bill. I do not recommend that at all. Reason being is because most of the banks outsource that to service to a third party. So now you're going from you to the bank to the third party to the payee. Every single one of those is another layer of vulnerability. You're better off with one-to-one transactions. If you want to pay your American Express, log into your American Express account, go to americanexpress.com, log in, pay your bill directly there. You'll get a confirmation, and then you can log into your bank account, and you can see that the transaction has been completed. That's what I recommend as far as online banking.
Anybody else?
I'll just add this to hit home Carrie's point. Carrie and I actually worked on a case together, and it's admittedly an odd case, but it was a situation where the person was relying on their monthly statements rather than online, and the situation involved 6 figures. So, you know, you hear stories about I stole $3,000, but this is 6 figures. This is not a tiny little thing. That's a lot of money, which probably could have been, the outcome may have been different if they had followed Carrie's advice on online monitoring daily.
Anybody else? Next question. Ready, Lieutenant Parker? Debit versus credit card for gas purchases.
Actually, you should never use a debit card. Your debit card is tied directly to your checking account. And in today's day and age, criminals are stealing your debit or your credit card numbers, and they're doing it on a regular basis. One of the most popular places is at gas pumps. They're installing a device inside the gas pump that you will never see, so when you insert your card to pay at the pump, they are stealing that number, and then it's being sold on the black market, or it's being used in a short period of time for several thousands of dollars worth of purchases. So with a debit card, that money is, like I said, tied directly to your account. They could drain your checking account. You have to report the fraud, right? The financial institution will conduct an investigation. If they determine you're a victim, then they'll reimburse your account. And that could be up to 30 days. And if you have checks in the mail or anything like that, all of a sudden you're going to be paying bad check fees because you're going to have insufficient funds in your account to cover those checks. And it could cause other problems. Now let's flip it over with a credit card. If they steal your credit card number, that is pre-approved money. Let them steal the bank's money, all right? And with a credit card, if there's fraudulent activity, you report the fraud just as you would with a debit card, but they immediately put the money back onto your account, and then they do the investigation because there's laws to protect you as a consumer with credit cards that there aren't with debit cards. So always pay with a credit card. Cash is king. If you can do cash, that's fine. But secondary, use a credit card. What I recommend is getting a credit card, preferably with no annual fee. Rewards points are nice. And if you use your credit card on a daily basis, like I seem to do, then log onto your account every day and monitor the transactions. Because as you know, you can go to Target, and by the time you get home, you can see how much you paid at Target right there. It's already processed through your account or it's pending. All right, and the sooner you catch that fraud, the sooner you can report that card stolen, get a new card, and move on. Thank you.
One last thing, Lieutenant Parker mentioned the gas pumps, but these clone credit card devices, these skimmers, are also being placed on ATMs. Anything that you use your card on, usually outside at an ATM, these skimming devices are there. In fact, the criminals have gotten so good at it that they actually have Wi-Fi devices in there. So while they may have to initially put the device on the unit, they can just drive up and download the stolen data later. So their exposure is very, very limited, and your information is stolen. So just be aware of when you use your credit cards. If you have to go up to an ATM and tug on the device a little bit, because these folks are experts. And that's one thing I think it's for us to understand. And as investigators, I guess we sort of live this daily. But these folks that we're talking about that are looking to victimize you, they don't have a real job. Their job is for 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day to see how they can victimize others. So imagine if that were you daily, day after day. So they're constantly coming up with new schemes. So you have to sort of take yourself out of your trusting mindset and put it into something else to where these folks have nothing to do all day but figure out a new scheme, build a new device, and work with others to victimize, trusting citizens like yourself.
Just to piggyback on that, to let you know who we're up against, you have drug cartels getting out of the drug business and getting into identity theft because it's easy. I mean, it's so easy they could sit at home in front of their computer in their underwear and do it. They also, if they get caught, it's a slap on the wrist compared to drug charges. So we're dealing with drug cartels, terrorist organizations. These people write business plans of how they're going to steal your information and to steal our money. On occasion, you'll have somebody who might, steal a purse, steal a wallet, and go use it. But the majority of it, this is all organized organizations, and they plan this stuff out.
And people ask, well, do we have any gas station skimmers or ATM skimmers here? Yes. We recovered one 2 weeks ago at a bank in Naples, and in the past month we recovered 2 gas station skimmers from gas stations here in Naples. So don't think we're just that safe because we're in Naples. They target us all over the place.
Anybody else?
Yeah, when I watched the last panel, somebody said something about not all ATMs are created equal. It depends on which ones you use. I don't remember who said that, but maybe.
I tell people, as far as taking money out of an ATM, you have to use a debit card. So that would be the only time I would advise you to use a debit card. If you have to take cash out, if you can, go inside the bank and make a withdrawal, all right? Secondary, if the bank is closed, go to an ATM machine that you're familiar with. Try to go to the same ATM machine so you're familiar with the face of it. As Jim stated, they're going to put a device over top of the card reader to steal your cards. So it'll look a little different, especially if you're familiar with what it normally looks like. And if you're traveling, try to go to an ATM that's inside of a store or something along those lines, like a Walmart or something that's open 24 hours, because it's much more difficult for a criminal to put a skimming device on an ATM if it's a lot of traffic going by. They'll focus on that ATM outside the bank or at that drive-through aisle out there at 3 in the morning where nobody's watching.
Great.
One additional thing, we're talking about devices in physical plants, but we've had in the past, and I used to provide a little overview on ID theft, and I would ask for a credit card from the audience to point out some things on the card. So as I would take it, I would bring my hands together, and then I'd do explaining what I wanted to explain. And then I would tell the person, well, I've got all your ID because I have a handheld skimmer. So it's as simple as somebody that has access to your card where it can be out of your view for a second, where that information can be skimmed and then sold off later on.
To follow up on that, the new credit cards, there's the technology in it where it's called NFC, near field communication, where no longer do they have to physically obtain your credit card. If I had a laptop with certain type of software on it, all I'd have to do is walk amongst this crowd here, walk out the door, and I would have your credit card information. So that's the digital age that we're living in, that no longer do they even have to physically obtain your card to get the information.
Anybody else? Next question. How many identity thefts were there in Collier County last year? Does anybody know?
It's going to be a statistical question. I can tell you that in 2011, we had approximately 381 identity thefts, and in 2012, that jumped to 1,459. But now with new security measures, the most common type of identity theft is government fraud at 34%. The second most popular is credit or debit card fraud at 17%. So I know with the government fraud, they have taken necessary security measures to try to identify fraudulent income tax returns before they're processed, and they've been pretty effective on that, and we have seen a sharp decline in the number of ID thefts. And I think in 2013, we had 1,110, give or take a couple, and I think we're going to be around 1,000 for the year 2014.
Chief, sure.
In the city of Naples, we had 107 incidents, and 55% of those were identity theft, and 10% were the IRS fraud cases.
But remember, these are reported. When we're talking about direct contact with your bank reference your credit card, we may never be made aware that the credit card problem occurred.
And to provide a little bit of the outreach initiative that our office has actually joined hands with the IRS. Over the last year, our office has almost done about 100 outreach presentations to businesses and civic groups. So we're trying to get out into the business side of it versus just the community base. Since we do see, even talking with Rob Nett, that unfortunately a lot of these can be internal rings, people that actually work within these industries. So what we've done is we are going out to civic groups, small business owners, and just letting them know through lunch and learns maybe how you're shredding, who you have coming in to change your light bulbs or mop your floors at night. Little things like that may decrease some of these statistics by just going out and doing the outreach.
Next question. I'm going to take the liberty to combine two questions in the interest of time. Part one, do you have any special tips for older potential victims? And part two, what is medical identity theft?
Medical identity theft is when someone uses your identity, your Social Security, or maybe your insurance benefits for medical services and/or products. For example, we had in Collier County, we used to be the old HMA. One of their employees over at the Weston branch of HMA logged into the system and started downloading patient information. They went on to commit Medicare fraud. I don't remember how much. I know it was something like $500,000 or something worth of Medicare fraud. And I do know a lot of people that live here that were part of that. I actually was a patient at the hospital during that time frame. So that's what opened my eyes to the fact that there's nothing I can do to prevent it. With medical identity theft, ways you can detect if you have been a victim of it is when you receive your explanation of benefits, your statement from the insurance carrier or from Medicare, and it says we've paid for such and such for this doctor's visit. You need to go through those. You need to look at them. Don't just file it away. People all the time will say, well, I don't pay for it. What do I care? Well, we all pay for it. So you need to look at those. If you don't recognize the date of the appointment or the provider's name, you need to contact your insurance carrier. If you are contacting the doctor's office, because there's been a lot of changes within the HIPAA and the HITECH Act as far as the doctor's responsibility and liability, they're erring on the side of caution. And if you call and say, I need to get a copy of the medical record, I'm a victim of medical identity theft, 9 times out of 10, they won't give anybody the records because they don't want to give it to the wrong person. So in the event you do get an explanation of benefits that has a wrong information on it, looks like a medical identity theft, you need to contact the provider listed on it and ask for the medical record first. You're going to have to pay a fee. It's well worth it. I don't care if it's $20 or $100. It is well worth paying the fee because that's the only way you're going to know what medical services, treatments, or what was discussed during that appointment. If not, it's going to rear its ugly head at any point in time down the road because now we all have the electronic information, electronic medical records. So you might get the medical record corrected at one institution, but because they all share it with the lab, with the radiologist, and with all these other people, you might get it fixed here, but it can still be in your medical record over there. So you might be labeled as having diabetes when you don't. You might be you might have some symptoms and you go to the doctor and the doctor looks at the record and goes, well, it can't be cancer because they just had an MRI 3 months ago or 2 months ago, or they just had a blood test, so it can't be this because the test came back negative. Well, that wasn't your test, that was the person who's using your identity. Also, if you get a collection call or a bill for medical services that you know was not yours, sometimes those are scams because they're trying to get you to give up your personal information. The best way to deal with one of those is to look at your credit report because it should show the unpaid bill on there.
I want to add to that with regard to just, again, safeguards for elderly. Again, I want to reiterate, if you get a tax notice and you're not expecting it and you haven't filed in a while, open it. And also, you're targeted because you're trusting. And perhaps it's a bad thing. Don't be so trusting of people that come to you that you don't know or haven't asked for. And lastly, I was sort of waiting on someone in the panel to mention these, but how many in the audience have won money in the Jamaican lottery? Right? Of those of you that won money, who actually bought a ticket? Probably zero. So, there's so many scams out there and so in terms of protecting the elderly that are targeting you. And so between, if you didn't buy a Jamaican lottery ticket, you probably didn't win. Sounds obvious, but there are victims every day. And then these are folks that are skilled on the phone, that know enough about you to convince you to pay them a portion of the money before they send you your lottery proceeds. That's just not the way it works. Another common scheme, and it's ongoing, it's been out there for years. How many grandchildren have been in jail and they need you to bail them out, right? Okay, again, see, I got some hands up there. So there are people here in the audience that have been targeted because the people making phone calls know enough about the genetic makeup of your community to call you as an experienced citizen that you may actually have grandchildren that may be traveling that you don't know about. So just remember these common schemes. If it sounds too good to be true, it is true. And anyone that approaches you for something that you didn't ask to buy, and you're not don't buy it. So those are just a whole list of rebate schemes, refund schemes, debt relief schemes. They're all still out there. They're just made more easy today because they may have more information about you via social media or by purchasing your identity information in the black market.
To follow up on that, simple rule to follow. If it's an unsolicited phone call, hang up. Hang up. If it's your bank, they're going to send you something in the mail. They're going to do another way to follow up with you. But when in doubt, hang up, especially if they're asking for your social. There was one a few years ago where they would call claiming to be a credit card, for example, American Express, and they would say, oh, there's potential fraud on your account. We just need to verify your information. And they would give you the credit card number that's on your card. They would tell you your name, your address. They would give you all the information. And at the end, they say, oh, one more thing we forgot to verify. What's the 4-digit code on your number? Well, the people would assume it was American Express because they had all the other information. That's because the skimming devices do not capture the 4-digit code. So that's what they needed to do the online shopping. Another thing, too, is with emails. Do not click on any links or open any attachments from anyone, I don't care who it is, unless you have verbally spoken to the person to verify that they have sent it. I don't care if it's from your grandchild, your son, your daughter, your spouse, your best friend. I don't care who it's from. If they send you, say, hey, check out this funny video, or Grandma, look at my picture from the play. You need to call and say, were you in a play? Did you send me this email? Because it's very simple for them to spoof the from field, and it'll look like it's from a person you know or an email address you recognize, but it's actually not from them at all. They're just masking the true identity. So do not click on any attachments and do not click on any links until you have verbal confirmation.
Also, as I said in the beginning, be suspicious. I think you've heard that here as well. And call the police department. That's what we're here for. If you have any suspicions, call us, call us, call us. We have a great community policing unit in the city of Naples. So does Collier County Sheriff's Office. We would love to have you called, whatever it is, just to take care of your suspicions.
Federal Trade Commission has a wonderful publication on medical identity theft, and it's ftc.gov. It's also in our brochure. Go to that information. You can download it or you can order it. For those of you that are in organizations where you want to get publications, ftc.gov has a free location where you can order publications by boxes. So that's what we typically do even for our office. Medical identity theft is also under the Florida statute. It is personal identifying information most of you think is just your social, just a checking account, credit card, date of birth. But medical records is part of a PII, personal identifying information under Florida Statute 817. So yes, go to law enforcement because that is a compromised situation that you need to report to law enforcement.
Carrie, on this, could I ask you to summarize briefly your views on identity theft of the deceased and your advice to families compiling obituaries of loved ones?
Sure. When a loved one passes away, you need to be very careful about what you put in the obituary. Often people do it as a way to celebrate the life of their loved one, but criminals are using it as a treasure trove for information. First of all, you'll often put who the relatives are. So sometimes you might be giving away security questions, such as a mother's maiden name. The other thing you might be giving away is, where was their hometown? Who were they employed with for many years? What university did they go to? What organizations were they a part of? They can use all of this to profile their next victims. There was also here locally a Val hospice. When some people had gone through a Val hospice and until they had passed on, in the newspaper, in the obituary, the family would want to honor a vow saying that they helped the loved one. A scammer was actually going through the obituaries and calling the grieving families, pretending to be from a Val hospice, soliciting donations. And these families were grieving, and they were so grateful for the services provided to their loved one, they were paying it. Finally, one of these victims called a vow, and they said, "I'm so glad that you called us because we really wanted to, to try to pay back something for what you've done for our loved one." And they said, "What are you talking about? We don't make these phone calls." So the obituaries can provide a lot of information. When someone passes away, you need to contact Social Security Administration. You need to contact all of the credit bureaus, all 3 credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You need to contact any credit cards, bank accounts, anywhere that they had done business or had accounts with. But the reason you need to contact the credit bureaus is because they're not notified right away. You think if I send a death notice to, say, the mortgage company, they're going to report it to the credit bureau. Well, that can take some time, and they might only upload their records once a year. That allows a criminal to go in and continue to use your loved one's credit report to obtain new credit. So you need to make sure everyone is put on notice.
Thank you. We have time for 1, maybe 2 questions. Let me ask you to be concise, as always. Question 1. Does the city and/or county offer published times when you offer document shredding?
I was going to mention that, actually. The city and the county do have programs through their recycling departments. As a matter of fact, I believe I got a garbage gram this morning that said the city's going to have recycling this Saturday, Riverside Circle. That will be the 15th. But yes, they do. You just need to go to the websites and check the dates and times.
Is that right?
Exactly. Our utility department does that. They do it periodically. There's not like a set time. As the sheriff said, you can go on our website to get the information.
Thank you. Second question. How good are the anti-scam wallets that they are now selling?
Those are referring to the RFID, which is the radio frequency identifiers. To explain it in an easy way, remember when you'd go to try on a shirt or a pair of pants and it would have that big plastic thing attached to it, and if you got too close to the door, the exit of the store, the alarm would go off? That's RFID. In the unit that's in your credit cards, because now the technology is so small, they can actually put a processor within the plastic in a credit card. So what the credit card does is that it's the sender. It's sending out a signal. and it's looking for a reader. Now, the reader can be the terminal. Remember the mobile speed pass where you wave this little thing in front of it and it would take your credit card information because it was all stored? That's an RFID. Like I had mentioned before, if I walk down this aisle with a laptop and specific software on it, and unfortunately there's YouTube videos that shows you how to build readers, but you can walk out the room, and if anybody has an RFID credit card, you now have their credit card information. As far as these wallets and sleeves that you can buy, it looks like they're lined with like an aluminum foil looking material. When they first came out, they were great, but now there's counterfeit products on the market, and the counterfeit products are completely worthless. Really, there's not much we can do because every credit card we're getting now either has the NFC or the pin and chip. Just monitor your accounts, and if you notice fraudulent activity, contact the credit card company right away because you are protected by federal law. So monitor your accounts, that's all I can tell you.
One more quick one. Maybe this is for Chris. Should we remove apps from our phones, or has damage been done already?
I have to confess that I only know this because I watched a YouTube video yesterday. And Carrie can probably confirm whether it's true or not, but apparently the guy being interviewed say that even if you delete it, what you really need to do, because you're not getting rid of whatever's been installed there in the terms of malware or something like that, what you need to do is save the information, which you really need, and then do a factory reset. And I'll ask, because like I said, I watched that YouTube video, so Carrie can probably confirm that or elaborate on it.
You're a fast learner because you're absolutely right. Yes, if you do get one of these and you delete it, it looks like it's deleted off the phone, but it actually leaves a small program on there that remains dormant within your phone until you try to do something else and it accesses the information it wants to. The only way to get rid of it is a factory reset, so you'll need to go to your cell phone carrier, go to their local branch and ask them to do a factory reset of your phone. If you have synced that phone at all to any device, whether it's a laptop, a tablet, a desktop PC, whatever it might be, you need to run a virus scan on that machine, because when you sync them, you're saying it's a trusted device, which allows malware to pass through if that's what the malware was designed to do. So don't just stop with the phone. You also need to run scans on anything else you've connected to it.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have some good questions left. I'm sorry I didn't get to all of them. Perhaps our panelists to whom your question was addressed will stay after school, so to speak, and deal with the questions. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. I told you these panelists were great, and they did not disappoint. Let's have a round of applause. And the last word of the evening will be from one of the organizers of this event, the leader of the Naples Identity Theft Task Force, Murray Hendel.
Thank you. The ambassador for AARP is a fellow by the name of Mike Regan. He is the one with the sheriff that started all these seminars. He's hiding in the back of the room. Would you all please give him a cheer? Mike. The work for this seminar wasn't easy. It took a lot of work. And it was done basically by one person. Her name is Lydia Galton. Lydia did all the work. Would you please stand up and take a bow? The Naples Identity Theft Prevention Group is a group of people from Naples, and most of them are here now. I'd like to recite their names. Nancy Kearns, she left. Bruce Eby. Bruce, are you still here? Bruce, thank you. Linda Black. Linda's over there. Linda Penniman, city council person. Where's Linda? Bob Raymond, he's the guy that took the pictures. He had to leave. Ellen Siegel. Ellen, there she is over there. Reg Buxton couldn't make it today. And Effie Norton over there. Effie, thank you. I want to thank Jeff Lytle for a wonderful job. We were very fortunate at this seminar. Usually you have to sing a song, but he waived the song today. I want to thank all of the members of our panel. They did a wonderful job. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.